The pirates. Very weird, Franklin mutters as he looks over the body. The room is just as trashed as the one below it, and the body is altered in such a way that it resembles more a fish with a pair of legs, rather than the long tail of a serpent with a paddle fin at the end and a pair of massive grasping claws. He pulls out his boot knife and scrapes the weapon along the scales. The rattling rasp and the fact that more than one of the barbed scales flicks off by him gently running the back of the knife over it is both haunting and informative. "It's like megalodon shark skin," Jake remarks as he picks up one of the scales that were ripped off. There's more under them too, jagged armor plating, but no ability to actually breathe. "But why the fight? There's a broken and depowered retention band here as well," Miles says. "Forced into a healing coma? A quick, violent fight and forcing them down?" Franklin offers. "Then why the retention band?" Miles asks before all three of them tap at their headgear. "Go ahead. Hey honey, we've got a scout vessel over that mountain now. In 10 minutes we'll be giving the whole area a deep penetrating scan. It's harmless to living things, but it may set something off, so make sure you're someplace well away from any potential." "Hazards all right?" Agenda suddenly adds into the communication network and Miles nods. "Copy that. We'll hunker down where it's safe." Miles confirms before adjusting his set a touch. "Did everyone catch that? We've got friendlies just above, and I don't want there to be a hospital run because you sat down near to some kind of bomb. Everyone get to a secured and clear chamber 5 minutes ago." There's a chorus of confirmations from the channel even as Jake picks up something that had been buried under dust and some debris in a corner. "Hey, does this look familiar?" Jake asks, holding up a small device with clear electronic components half in and half out. "That may be a computer key. I think we should quickly double-check that room at the end of the hallway, close the door, and then see if we can't make that puppy purr," Franklin says before pausing and scrunching his eyes together with an exasperated exhale. "How did you mess up that saying?" Miles asks, momentarily dumbfounded, and Franklin sighs as he opens his eyes and then raises an eyebrow to ask if now is really the time to care about that. "Come on, oh beerless leader, let's get to that more secure computer room." "Stay out and watch the hall, dummy," Franklin says to his test dummy as he uses a touch of Axiom to shift it into a sitting upright position that stares with an eyeless gaze to the stairwell. They quickly pile into the computer room and check it again. Scanners, Axiom, scans, and eyeballs all agree. Nothing in the room looks like it'll blow up. So they close the door behind them and begin the waiting game for the scan to pass them by. It sets of something in the bowels of the complex, and all three men trade odd looks after the rattling and rumbling fades. They open the door to allow the signal strength of their gear to return. Did anyone else hear that? Something in this hidden facility went off. "Damn, and he had just 2 days till retirement," Franklin mutters as he notes his dummy in numerous pieces over the hallway. He gathers Axiom and claps his hands together to force the test dummy to reform back into its normal configuration. Thankfully, he has a good medical program. "What do you think went off?" Jake asks, and Franklin considers. "I can't smell anything off, can you?" Franklin asks. "No, I can't." "What about Axiom?" Jake presses. "We were behind a tritite alloy door when it happened. I couldn't sense a thing." "You girls shut up. That explosion killed the signal boosters. I'm trying to work them through all the interference." Miles scolds them. "Let's just go back down and get back to the hole instead," Franklin says, and Miles reaches into his jacket to hand Franklin a pair of signal boosters. "Or you can fly over and replace them, wizard boy. Chop chop." Miles orders him, and Franklin gives him a dirty look before he starts wrapping Axiom around them both. "All right, so they're at," Franklin says in a considering tone before hurling both devices down the hallway. They fly straight down the pipe until one suddenly activates and magnetically adheres itself to the railing, and the other loops under before heading directly to the hole in the level below and landing right where the other one was before the shockwave blasted it out. "Done! All forces report in. Any injuries?" Miles demands the moment his signal goes through. "Bit of a scare over here. We weren't too far away from the hole when that happened, and the bodies in that room jumped out into the hallway," Beck remarks. "You shot at least half of them before they hit the ground." Lou remarks, And you had your swords out and 3 bodies bisected before you stopped to think, Beck returns. No injuries nor surprises for us. Ryu says, cutting off a potential argument. We've also had no luck in finding a proper entrance to that complex you guys are in. I'm starting to think that this one may be completely separate as some kind of camouflage. Victor adds, that makes sense. How about our reinforcements? Jean-Luc, that wasn't you that boomed us, was it? If I wanted to blow you up, you'd be giblets. The room jumped, but beyond making a mess of this mess, that was about it. Jean-Luc replies, we're whiling away the weight by sorting through the little stolen trophies and knickknacks of the killer. If the bodies weren't a hint enough at it, then this room would confirm she was a hoarder, Marcus remarks. We've been able to confirm there's no apparent extra doorway in this room, but the mess is so huge that the jury's out on a possible trapdoor. I'm uncertain if this room would be more or less disgusting if she had small body parts in here. It couldn't get much worse than this without some concentrated effort, Sai says into the channel. If you need some fresh air, just let us know. You can take a... I'm fine. I won't be searching out a place like this for my amusement, but I am fine, Sai says. If you say so, Miles states. What's this I've overheard about something exploding? Agenda asks over the communication line. No one's hurt, so it's a good thing. It can't explode twice, so we're a little safer, Miles says. We do need to figure out what or how that happened, though. This complex is old. Everything reactive should have gone off or degraded long ago. It's why I told you to get someplace safe. The kind of scan we use can and will set off certain types of axiom effects, but it's one of the only known ways for getting through Tri-Tight. Agenda explains. What kind of axiom effects are set off by these scans, and why haven't I heard of them? Stasis fields. So if there was some solid evidence to whatever happened down here, it's... Miles begins, and there's a skittering and clattering sound from the direction of the stairs. Possible contact! It causes the fields to detonate outwards without damaging whatever they were wrapped around before, Agenda states. So it was a bad idea to scan this way? Miles asked pointedly. No, we found the entrance. It's underwater. There is no link between the two facilities, and there's evidence of rusted-away structures near the mouth of the underwater entrance. Agenda states. We're sending reinforcements from the proper entrance now, full mexits. The girls are going in hot, especially if you hear something alive in there. The thing in the stairwell starts thrashing around again, and there's a scream from it, a scream of pain. We need to check that out, Miles says. If it's a surviving experiment, they may be able to explain things. Franklin lifts his hands and the dummy rises from the ground. He then hurls it into the stairwell. There is an exclamation of shock and a flurry of what can only be swearing. Well, it's a person at least. Don't torment the poor woman. Jake scolds him as all 3 men start moving. It's less than a minute to the stairwell and Franklin sends balls of light downwards to give the ancient room a warm glow. Hello down there, can you understand me? Miles calls, looking down the stairwell, and an eyebrow on him goes up when a trinity of bald women look back up at him. Where am I? Where's the rest of me? Who are you? You're in a hidden and abandoned laboratory I don't know, and I'm Miles Brent. I'm scouting this place to see if there's anything dangerous, Miles explains. Franklin, she's coherent. Take us down. On it, Franklin replies, and all 3 men float out into the central void of the stairwell and quickly lower to the level below the one they started at. A lidrous woman staggers back from them in fear. She's covered in some strange fluid, and there are obvious stumps where 3 other bodies used to grow from her. The stumps are fresh, but not bleeding. They all land safely and take in the sight of the wide-eyed, soaking wet, and clearly terrified woman. What's going on? She asks in a terrified tone. We don't know. We were investigating this place when Tri-Tight piercing scan went through it to try and find the proper entrance. That let off an explosion and apparently unsealed you from stasis, Miles says. Ma'am, what do you remember? Are you all right? I'm not all right. This, she says, holding herself and shivering, but wincing as her writhing bodies nudge up against the stumps. What's your name? Jake asked, as Franklin quietly calls for all nearby medics to make double time to their location. Moira Octalary, she says, taking a few deep breaths, and her gigantic torso both sucks in and lets out air between her gills. Then Franklin goes very still, and his eyes suddenly bore into her face. I need to check something, Franklin says, before suddenly taking off and launching up to the next level in a blur. What do you think Jake begins to ask, and there's a curse echoing around from Franklin and the sound of rushing wind as he moves even faster to the next location. What's going on? Moira asks. Franklin tends to notice things others miss. He wouldn't do this if it wasn't. Miles begins to explain before Franklin drops down from above and stops in midair in front of them all. I am so sorry, miss, Franklin says in a haunted tone. What? What happened? We found 2 of your bodies. They've been dead and mutated for centuries, Franklin says, and Moira freezes in absolute horror. No, 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 they wouldn't. They would not. It's evil. It's wrong. They wouldn't do that to me, she exclaims in horror. Soldier, she's missing 5 bodies, Miles says, and we found 2. Franklin replies. They promised. It was a simple enhancement experiment. Harmless, painless. Not this, Moira says. Let's take it from the top. What is your name and profession, ma'am? As an example, I am Duke Commander Miles Brent of Vuxa 5, soldier and officer of the Undaunted, sniper specialization. My species is human, of Caucasian ethnicity. I am Jake Morgan, Baron under Duke Brent, soldier and officer of the Undaunted, heavy weapon specialization. Species human, African ethnicity, Jake adds in a steady tone. The tone is important. If they're calm, then they may help her calm down. Franklin Smith, Baron under Duke Brent, soldier and officer of the Undaunted, Axiom specialist and researcher. I'm human and Caucasian as well, Franklin says. Moira Octillery, no title, soldier and non-commissioned officer of the Unrelenting Legion, amphibious assault specialist. I'm a Lidris with Shoal Coast ancestry, but am fleetborn. Officer Octillery, what do you recall before waking up in your current state? Miles presses her. She's military? Good, that can be easily worked with. I was sent as a guard to research Outpost 853 Wild. The local fauna were reported to have unusual traits that could be used in experimental armor and weapons. My job was to assist with testing weapons and armor, as well as keeping the scientists here safe. At what date? Jake asks. 913 current epoch. It's 1094 current epoch, although from what I understand, when the calendar turns to the next year, we're going to reset the clock. Franklin says, What? You've been down here nearly 200 years, ma'am. What am I going to do? Well, you're going to get help for starters. There's a reason this epoch is all but officially named the emergence of humanity. Miles says before a light starts shining down from further below, You girls better have a medic with you. This woman needs help immediately. We do, and we're coming. The mechanically distorted voices of the friendly pirate forces declare from below. The emergence of humanity? Moira asks in a shaking tone.